So this is just going to be me talking about monster stuff. And if you guys have any questions, I'm going to answer them. I'm going to give some basic rundowns. And you guys, basically I want to inform you guys on any questions you may have. So I'm going to start off basically with a prepared bit about monster traits and the idea of monsterdom, thematically, what we do, all right? Why we look the way we look, or why we have specific dressing up styles. So goblins have elbow covers, knee covers, green, right? So that you look at them, you can say, that's a goblin. Hat trolls have a hat and a coat. I mean, when you look at them, that is a hat troll. This is for a very specific reason, because they're in Belegarth, as opposed to any other LARP or anything like that. There are no rules. No one has any rules saying what you are. No one makes those rules. There aren't in the Book of War or anything like that. I'm saying what it takes to be a monster, and no one can enforce them on you. So technically, there isn't anything that says this is what you can have to do to be a monster. It's just what these norms we've agreed upon. So I mean, you don't have to do that. But at the same time, if you have 50 different people saying, well, I'm a blood orc, so I'm red, and I'm a ocean orc, so I'm blue, and I'm this kind of orc, so I'm green, I'm this kind of orc, and I'm this, and I'm this kind of orc, so I'm short, and I'm this kind of orc, so I'm lanky and tall, well then, how can anyone tell what you are? But at the same time, this doesn't mean you can't do your own thing, right? That's actually strongly encouraged. It's just that we have certain things that I say you should work well within. So, a great example of this is what goblins have managed to do. You have goblins, all right, covers elbows, covers knees. But then you have night goblins. They have checkers, they have the hoods, all right, they have a really great look to them. You have the mech goblins, necessarily. They have the machinery stuff going on, all right? And then you have snotlanes, the smaller goblins, but they all adhere to this overarching goblin theme. So, I mean, no one's going to ask you what you are. That just doesn't work. So we all have to operate under just visual cues, and that's why it's important. So we're just going to start from there. Any ideas on that? I mean, I understand people, when they come into this, really want to do their own thing. I've had some people talking about blood orc stuff. I don't know if that was you or someone else or something. And they were like, well, no, we're just going to go red. That's just what we're going to do. I really like this idea of blood orc maybe, but maybe what you should do is green and then do red war paint and red slashes on your garb and, you know, different kind of things like that you include in your garb. And that way it's, you're an orc, but then obviously you have a lot of red included. Or other orcs have been like, we really liked the blue. Cool. Do the green and then do like woad painting on you, or blue included on your like garb and blue on that, because then you just look that way and you include it in a lot in you, and that's really great. And you bring in your own stuff to it, and that's a way to customize it to yourself. One of the things that I really regret that happened, that we lost in the Hat Trolls, was what happened with the Deep Ones. I'm happy that they're making their own thing. But originally they wanted to be sea trolls. And for some reason they felt that they just weren't getting, I don't know, enough out of sea trolls or whatever. What I really wish would have happened was that they were hat trolls that lived near the sea. And so, because I mean, right now a lot of deep ones seem to wear hats. It would have been great if we could have had them worked in, and they were hat trolls and they lived near the sea, so they had some of that, like maybe evolution stuff. They had the webbing and whatnot, but they still had the hats and the coats. I respect that they're doing their own thing, but that would have been a great example of maybe like a side thing where people were doing their own thing, but they're kind of group. That didn't work out, but that's great. They're doing their own thing, so good for them. But there are ways that people can incorporate themselves into group while still doing their own things and enjoying and customizing it and making it their own. So I mean, but at the same time, I have to reiterate, no one is saying these are the rules and you have to obey them, because that's just nowhere in Belegarth. This is a collective creation we've all made. a creative creation. So it's a lot of fun. Just do it. Have fun with it. Any thoughts on this? Any ideas? Yeah, that's where a lot of this came from. Do it. Hat Trolls, I got it from Lobo. He was the original one. And then he kind of stopped, and then I did it. And it was me and Troll.
I'm the 7th one, and I'm the first one who's wanted to do it.
Yeah, and now Hat Trolls, there are 7 of us at this event. So do it. Just have fun. As long as you're having fun and you're doing it, screw it. And you look nice.
Look at Cyrano. Cyrano was, I don't even know why he decided to be bird person.
Exactly,
It
Tango,
really just
creating
was-
Tango.
Well, and it originally started out, he was literally just a bird person. He decided to make it legit by doing Tengu. Now there's 5 Tengu.
I know of 3 at this event.
Yeah.
So I mean, hey, yeah, cool.
It really took off.
So I mean, if you're going to create your own thing, okay, sure, that can work. You have to put in a lot of work to it as well. Something also that can really be important if you are doing monster garb, just as a sidetrack on this, was layers. Layers are very important when you're doing garb. This ends up looking really good. So you'll look at someone that has some really good garb. Your garb is a great example. It's coming along, which is nicely. It just looks good. Why? One of the main reasons? There's lots of layers to it. Layers are very important. Quinn's going to turn the camera if that's all right.
Hold on, I'm the mask on.
You know, there's just stuff to it. Lots of layers to it. You know, it helps. It really helps these kind of things. So, anyways, I'm gonna throw some more history at you guys, and we're on monster culture now. And to do that, I'm gonna go way, way back on you, and then bring it forward. So, way back, and we're talking single-digit rags here. You know, I don't know if you know the original monsters. The most populous monsters, as we all know, goblins. So obviously, the first monsters, orcs. Believe it or not, the very first monsters, orcs. And what came about from that was they saw this knight. There was a field battle going on, and this knight stepped off to the side to kind of flank, and 5 people stepped off to fight this knight. And they could have surrounded this knight and beat him up. But this knight went, no shit, this actually happened, honor battle. And one of these people stepped off by themselves to fight this knight. And the knight, being better than any one of these 5 people themselves, easily killed him and then went honor battle. And another person stepped off by themselves to fight this knight. And he killed him. And he did this one after another until he killed all 5 people. And then he went off and just flanked to the side after that. And these guys were sitting there watching this. And they're just like, so what kind of bullshit is that? And they just were like, well, that's kind of stupid. But at the time, that was just the thing you did. Everyone was doing like a European knighthood thing. That's the way it was all kind of set up. So, like, all right, they'll obviously learn from their mistake. So line up. And Leon's called again. This guy goes out there again. And then again, like 5 or 6 people go out there. Like, oh, they got like 6 people now. They learned their lesson. And he goes honor battle. And someone comes out to fight him by himself again. And they do the honor battle 1-on-1. And he beats them. And he does this over and over again, just calling people out in honor battle. And he fights them 1-on-1 and kills them 1-on-1 because he's better than themselves. Although if they all rushed him by himself, they could kill him. And so these guys are like, all right, this is enough of this bullshit. So the orcs go in to grab their gear, and they go out to the other side. And Leon's called, and he goes out, honor battle. One of the guys go, oh yeah, sure, and tap. And one of the other guys runs up and says, pop, 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 and gives him in the back. And he's like, oh, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't understand. My bad. They're, oh, okay, well, honor battle, you only do 1-on-1. You don't involve. They're like, oh, okay. All right, cool. Leon's called. Honor battle, and the orcs are like, my apologies, let's do this again. Okay, tap. And then one of the orcs hops up and shoots him with a bow. Just pow, right in the face. He's like, oh! They're like, ha, 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 ha. And they go run off and run aside. And they do this over and over again. And when he stops doing honor battle, they start challenging him to honor battles. And they're like, honor battle! And he'll look around. The other orcs, and you can't see them because they'll be like hiding. And they'll be like, all right, well, I'm a knight. I have to accept the honor battle challenge. tap, and like, shoot him at the arrow, just, until eventually he stopped accepting the honor battle challenges. They're like, oh, you're not going to accept honor battles, and just mocking the crap out of him. And they started doing this to every knight, as much as they could, right? And some other people saw this and they're like, this is goddamn hilarious. And some of the other people watching this were Izareth and some of the other monsters. And they saw these other orcs having this great time, they're like, I want to do that. And that's where a lot of these other monsters came from. They saw these people having a great time at these other knights' expense, and they were like, you know what? That honor thing is a bunch of bullshit. So originally, monsters came about as kind of like, all right, that whole honor thing is bullcrap and just working to their advantage. Let's make fun of that. And then some other people got kind of jaded to it because they'd have bad experiences where people that they thought should be honorable, nice, maybe they felt weren't taking their hits, or were starting to feel elitism. So they went to the side they felt was counterculture to that, monsters. So Monsterdom evolved kind of into a counterculture of having fun and making fun of and being, at the expense of knighthood, and also of these guys are assholes and we need to make fun of and fight against them. And so it kind of became both at the same time, and it evolved into that.
Also kind of mocking the stick job, right?
Yeah, mocking the whole idea of that. But at the same time, that's where knighthood came from. It was a lot of knighthood in Belegarth came into skill at combat, as opposed to other LARPs, which were, like Amtsgard has the Knight of Sewing or whatnot of that. Well, Belegarth really only has one type of knighthood, and a lot of times it's very involved around combat. But that's a really good point. Another good point though is that knighthood is based around a lot of this stuff, like a lot of role playing before was all European based, right? So to develop a culture, a counterculture, monsters went, well, how can we come up with our counterculture? Well, we don't want it to be linked to monsters, so how are we going to design our garb? We have to do it not European based then. Well, then where are we going to reach? Middle Eastern, Far East is where we'll get our garb. So that's why you'll end up seeing a lot of hakamas or different type of garb that you'll end up seeing. Or why you'll see them in skirts, because you don't want to have the knightly tabards and that kind of thing, so you'll see men in skirts, you'll see hakamas, you'll see that kind of thing, or maybe the furs for the barbaric look, because monsters really want to differentiate themselves from the knightly idea, and a lot of the knightly idea that you see in Belegarth is very much strongly pulled from the European. So in order to introduce a counterculture, we drew from different cultures in order to create our monster. Anything anyone wants to put in? Any questions people have on this so far? Or any just thoughts? Yeah.
So my biggest struggle with Mindboard is I really want to be in board, so I have two races in Kitsune that I'm making one of them. So there's the one that everyone else has that's there, so they can quit bitching at me, and then there's mine. And it's Nagatsude. It actually exists in the normal outer lore. It's just not something they talk a lot about. So I've just taken it and learning it.
Yeah.
My struggle right now is garb design, because Kitsune are Japanese based, and I just don't know how to do that in a monstery way. Like this, I'm like, people with paint, hug me, make this dirty, please. It's just new. So I
got plenty of paint over here.
Yeah, I want this to be dirty, but I just got it, so it's brand new. It's pretty. Yeah, this is my feast garb basically. This is what I have.
You can look into. Luckily,
and it's so
we do have a lot of good artistic people that ended up. You guys weren't necessarily here 15 years ago with Monsterdom, where we were wearing floral skirts. Monsters did have a bad rep for a long time. In all fairness, there were some people with really good garb in monsters, but there were a lot of us with really bad monster garb, and it's come a long way. Yes, a number of us deserved the bad rep, so I can understand that. In all fairness, though, you have to also realize that perhaps something we've had to come to terms with in Monsterdom is that I'm glad you brought this up, is that we've come to terms with is that there are perhaps we've really kind of broken it down into there are 3 different types of monsters. There's your traditional barbaric monsters living in the woods, which would be ogres, trolls, goblins, orcs, those kind of monsters. Then you've got your gothic monsters, which would be undead, vampire, werewolf, that kind of thing. And then you've got your fae monsters, which would be Jinn, Spirit, Zune, Lunar, those kind of monsters. So, we're trying to, now trying to work that out. So that's one we're trying to figure out. So what you're going for is more of a spirit one. So, you also have to try and figure out, because there is lore out there. You'll have to maybe research it more in Japanese lore of different horrific horror spirit monsters out there. But also, if you do want to do a spirit monster, that's fine. They've been, into trickery and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and that's what we are. We are.
So, they're not necessarily always dirty. That's always fine.
Oni? Because there are some Oni.
Yeah, but there's also the Oni, which are kind of a terrifying spirit creature.
And that's what I'm trying to turn Nagasuni into. It's a scary creature.
So that would be more along the Oni area.
Give you a quick backstory. We were literally created from the weakness of our own emotions, and we turned into a monstrous creature. And
so yeah, that'd be the evil spirit, which was the Oni. So yeah, look into that. Oni. O-N-I.
O-N-I?
Yes.
Also, if you find Archive has written an extensive amount of Oni.
Yeah, there have been some other people that are trying to do Oni stuff. So look into that, because some people have been trying to do that, and that could probably help you a little bit. I'm glad you brought that up, though, because that branches into that, and that could probably help you.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. So I think what I've started with regard, the best I've gotten so far is coordinated due to based on their element that they, for spirits, we have elements we feed on. So whatever elements we feed on is based on the color we wear. It's not written down, so I haven't really followed that. And my color would be black, orange.
We also have, we have the monsters of Belegarth. So that'd be a good place to discuss that specific stuff. Okay, so yeah, look into getting in contact with other people doing Oni stuff, and that'll probably help you out a lot there.
Thank you.
All right, anyone else have some stuff they want to bring up or whatnot?
We were talking about the hat trolls and deep ones, and it kind of raises an interesting question of when groups get a bit too subgroupy. Like with the goblins right now, there's so many different subgroups of goblins, and it's working okay. But there's always that kind of concern of it getting to where you're like such a very specific type of monster that it's kind of like, all right, at what point are we making too many subgroups? At what point are we getting too?
That's one thing we've always kind of struggled with when you're creating the monster stuff, is that we always struggle with, we want to make it so we want to stick to certain visualizations, like, all right, this is what you have to do to be a goblin, or this is what you have to do. So like, hat trolls went through this. We were like, you have to do the hat, you have to do the trench coat, and hat trolls are purple. And that caused some trouble, and so we lost some people because they didn't want to do purple. And so eventually we had a reconciliation. We're like, all right, fine, you don't have to do purple. It could be this color of shades, So sometimes there's the reconciliation parts. But also there comes down to the point where some people really just want to be, forgive the term, like special snowflake, or I want to do my own thing. And sometimes you just can't work with those people. And it's like, you know what? If you're just not willing to work within a certain amount, like if you're just not willing to do the bare minimum, which makes you recognizable as our race, maybe this race just isn't for you. You always want to try and work with people the most, try and include them, because we're not trying to exclude people, and we're all here to have fun together. Like I said, we're not here to make the rules, and we're not here to exclude people. So it's always a tough call, because also no one's in charge of any of these races. There's no one like, I'm in charge of trolls.
We're not playing one person's RPG.
Yeah, I'm not in charge. Yeah, like, although people come to me a lot of times about troll stuff, or a lot of people come to Gretchen about female hat troll stuff, we aren't in charge of it. And I want to see other people produce more stuff, and they do it. So I see that come up a lot, and it can be tough to handle because I want to see other people do their own stuff. But there's also only so much wiggle room because like sometimes there are other trolls, but they don't want to wear the hat, and they don't want to wear a trench coat. So it's like,
Then you're not a hat.
well, then you're not a hat troll, you know?
You may be a troll.
So that's
You-
like telling people, okay, this is the garbage can, deal with it.
Yeah, yes, this is the bare minimum. This is the bare minimum. I'm not saying you can't be a troll. Go do that.
You know what's always solved it for me, Jesus?
What's
Is
that?
Staying in character. If you're not happy with the way someone's doing your race, then, like, if I saw a goblin with no knees and elbows, I'd be like, oh wow, you're pretty obscene. You must not be a goblin then.
Yeah.
And, okay, does that seem a little harsh? Yeah, but I'm in character, and that's what I would think. I'd be like, oh, that thing can't be a goblin. It's not green, and you can see its elbows, and it doesn't even know what this one is, so...
And that, I noticed that with goblins, it became almost a cultural thing because like there would be hot events where a lot of goblins would go nude, as I call it, and the ongoing joke would just be that everyone would start saying, well, you're a nudist goblin, or we'd say free the elbow, and even though they weren't doing it by that
doing it, they were
acknowledgement that
acknowledging it, right, and that's fine.
exactly,
Because
it
this is our
reinforces
racial
the culture.
signifier.
Exactly.
So yeah, everyone, like, if I'm not wearing my hat, everyone knows I should be wearing my
Right.
hat.
Exactly.
All the like racial identifiers. How
Getting.org has...
Basically, ask anybody and they'll tell you. But there's
Efforts
probably
to
not a
make
good central
good documentation, but we're not a culture of.
Which-
Belegarth in general is not a culture of people who are very organized.
I mean, that's fair. We've been trying, I mean, people have been trying to do better at doing it, but not really, honestly, probably. But at the same time, if you get a group of them together, put 4 hat trolls together, and you'll be like, well, okay, I can now tell them.
Well, a lot of it survived as an oral history before it was ever on the internet too. So
Yeah.
I'm not worried really. Like if it doesn't all get codified immediately, that's fine because maybe it wasn't mimetic enough to be put on the internet. So.
I want to do this, but I don't want to look at every single race and then like individually and see, well, does this meet what I can do with my garb?
Yeah. Well, you also, like, kind of go with what you feel drawn towards. And that kind of thing.
I don't know what that is.
That's fair.
And if someone,
I like both.
If you
I mean,
want to come
what you're
hang out-
rocking right now feels a very good ogre.
Yeah.
That's what
Yes.
I thought you were an ogre.
I have no idea.
Looking at you right now, I immediately went ogre.
Oh, okay.
We should.
So
what is that?
that's the other thing. If you hang out around people who hang out around a bunch of monsters, they'll tell you what they think you would be good at.
Yeah.
How do ogres?
Ogres usually do sleeveless. They usually do a lot of bones and tribal.
They're very elemental.
Yeah, and they also very elemental based.
Okay. But are there any like strict specifications about like face paint, stuff like that?
Sleeve, usually
No
sleeves.
sleeves.
No,
Oh,
yeah,
and they have a strict religion. Ghana over there is a great person to talk to about it, as is Gorlock.
We can find you something too.
that would be helpful.
Yeah,
the religion is pretty cool.
Yeah, their religion is actually the best, most codified religion. That's the one thing about ogres, though, is they're the most strict when it comes to their codified religion. Like, these are the rules for it. You can fall within it, but you will fall within somewhere in it.
as opposed to goblin religion, which is just like willy-nilly cults all over the place and no one agrees. And, like,
Yeah.
Although
So-
with the goblin religion, it did start to get kind of. There's so many people that had a specific kind of thing, because my roommate is a goblin, Diesel, but for a long time he was a goblin who worshipped Morgoth, and he was kind of like the heathen.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay.
Yeah.
As long as he's into it. Again, I always back to like if somebody wants to be a special snowflake, as long as case by case, it's awesome while they're doing it. I'm okay with it.
You know, there's an interesting one thing I want to bring up was where you're talking about not having it written down, oral tradition. One thing that happened by it being an oral tradition was the evolution of the knees and elbows.
Right.
See, originally, goblins, it wasn't knees and elbows. You'll notice by Kudzu's garb, and you'll notice it with Izareth's garb, it was neck to ankles and to wrists, covered. And then other people slowly, through doing it, were like, oh, well, I mean, it's hot, etc., etc. It just became, you have to have your knees and elbows covered was what you had to do. It was like just a good rule of thumb, so now they always made regards to that. But then people started getting clever, like, well, I guess I'll just make elbow and knee covers, and that way it's really hot out and I don't have to have that covered. So you'll see old school traditional ones have the full garb.
These young kids in their crazy, scandalous outfits.
So yeah, you'll see the old school ones that have the full garb going all the way, but then the oral tradition was simply, yeah, you have to have your elbows and your knees. It was the idea to get that far. But then they're like, oh, I'll just cover my elbows and knees. And that developed into, why? Because there are erogenous zones or something. But it just came because of that, because it was an oral tradition passed on.
The whole goblin reproductive story came from that too.
Yeah, so it's an interesting way how those oral traditions evolve, being passed down. So yeah, it's fascinating.
A good example, because I just thought of that we were talking about, was the orcs. When the orcs started to get they felt like they were too many tiny little subgroups of orcs, and it was Rowan and Gil who decided to get rid of all of the subsets of orcs because they didn't feel like there was enough cohesiveness. So
I mean, I know there's been rumblings and it's been like rocky for them to do it, but I mean, I feel probably it was for the best because yes, there was just so much. It was like, is he an orc? What is going on there? Now when you see someone, you're like, oh yeah, that's an orc.
Well, they still look like goblins, but they're working.
But that's green. That's just part of it. But at the same time, if I see someone green and they have a chompy, I can be like, yeah, that's an orc.
Yes, very true.
100%, I can identify them as an orc. And that's a really good thing, because it used to be like, that person's blue and that person's red, but I have the chompies. Are they an orc? I'm not sure what's going on. Now I can immediately do it. Goblins don't own green.
No,
so I mean, it helps a lot now when they did those changes. Personally, I think it was good. But at the same time, I understand the rumblings. I understand that. So that was a good example of what you're talking about with the splits and the subdivisions and sometimes it getting too divided. One thing I did want to move on to, which was the cultural differences, and part of this being an oral thing. So it was really interesting, want to talk about a little bit, is Monster Nights. And how this actually came into a difference of opinions. So first we're going to talk on Monster Nights. Obviously, because of this whole thing, East, Midwest, monsters had a very counterculture and offensive interaction with knights. And that's just the way we'd always been. What?
It was birthed with that.
We were birthed with that, and I've loved that. A lot of monsters have really played off of that. Now, it doesn't mean there aren't some knights out there that we think are fine people. It's just that that's part of our culture. That's where we came from. All right? So there's a reason that quite a few of us are like, if you're going to be a monster, you can't be a knight, and so on and so forth. However, if you'll notice, if you go west, suddenly you'll see them being a lot more okay with it. And in fact, you also start running into even monsters who are knights. And you might be like, okay, suddenly I don't understand. Well, it's an interesting thing that happened, is that Belegarth didn't arise normally in the West like it did here, in the East and the Midwest. It all came up and arose, and all this stuff happened, and then it was brought to the West, right? And if someone showed up and went, hey, by the way, this is Belegarth, here are the rules. By the way, you can be racist and do what you want. There are also units. There are also knights. And you can also be monsters. Go. And someone's like, cool, I want to be in the EBF. But I want to be a monster. And they're like, that sounds great. And someone else, I'm a goblin. But hey, I want to help out my realm. And I also want to aspire to learn to be better. So I'm going to be a squire. And they're like, sure, you should do that. And it just made sense to them. And no one was there to be like, you can't do that because monsters hate knights. They're just like, yeah, that makes great sense.
It's a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah, you know what? They did it their own way. So, I mean, personally, I think it's stupid. I hate monster knights. But again, there are no rules. There's no rule that says you can't be a monster knight. So there may be people that have opinions like this. There may be a culture that has arisen up because of this. But if you want to do that, if that's how you have fun, then you should do it.
Well, that's also how it wasn't Hakan. There's somebody else who created War Master.
Again, we won't get into that.
Right.
Okay.
But it was
But
out of that desire to hold on to the culture.
yeah. So I mean, so that's why maybe you'll see a different culture of monsterhood arise from the West and the Midwest and the East. Is that they kind of evolved as if they came from separate trees. It was like a seed was planted and then left alone. And then all of a sudden, every now and again, they interact. And they're like, gee, you're different monsters than us, aren't you? You're a slightly offshoot. That's okay. In fact, that's great.
I think it's fascinating.
I just want to say that that's why that exists. Is because they kind of evolved separately from each other. And they don't necessarily have the same background with all of Belegarth and the history. So they have a different perspective on it. So that's why that exists. Sometimes people don't understand why that perspective exists and why one side feels the way it does about monsterdom and knights and units. Like, you don't see monsters in EBF in the Midwest and the East. You don't. And yet you go out there and you got a whole bunch of them. And it's great. And I think that's fantastic. So it's just an entirely different thing. Questions, ideas, thoughts? I'm just jabbering and I'm yelling at you guys, so.
That's good.
Again, that's also kind of a thing. They would.
I always heard if you look scary, you're a monster.
They technically fit into. They're in one of those weird areas. Humans would consider them monsters. We like to make fun of them because they're a popular race to make fun of a lot of the times. They would technically probably be considered monster-esque. They're kind of in one of those weird situations. You could probably consider them monster.
I think elves would consider, because Drow are technically
Yeah.
elves. But I
They're
don't
they're probably more along the
call
lines
them-
of evil creature as opposed
Yeah.
to monster.
Doesn't mean they wouldn't like ally themselves with the monsters.
Yeah. And in all fairness, Drow would probably be more along the lines of evil.
Just
You'd be like my boss.
Well, we used to have Sir Zachary
Yeah.
for a long.
Yeah, and he was Drow. So like,
was a Drow.
and you can do your own
That
thing.
was Drow.
Yeah.
She did a good job.
we like to torture our
So I mean,
humans
yeah.
and other monsters.
Personally, my opinion would be, I'd see Drow as evil person, evil creature, than monster. Because monster, like I said, we've kind of right now come to an idea of barbaric monsters, live in the woods, terrible creatures, etc., etc. Gothic monsters, undead, vampires, wolves, and fae monsters, you know, spirits, etc., etc. Which Drow really don't fit into this. Drow would be, I live in a city, but I'm evil, you know? It's be somewhere along the lines of evil humans, evil, etc., you know? Yeah, they also live in underground cities and caves. But I mean, at the same time, you can try and make that same comment about bugbears or something like that, you know?
It's basically, do you identify yourself as being monstrous, and are you acting like a monster?
And I had a lot of
You know, so that's always been one of the more hard ones. I'm not gonna lie, I make fun of Drow all the fucking time. But I make fun of everyone all the fucking time, so don't take it hard.
not though. There's so many in the West. We have
So, I don't think I have too much more to offer, but I will answer any questions people have. That was a fair question entirely. And that's honestly more of a hard one when it comes to Drow. That one is kind of a gray area.
No pun intended. Ha ha. I'll say if anybody wants to talk to me about monster crap, I love to run my mouth about that, and I'll do
Yeah,
it.
I mean, I have more information that I've gotten heard and whatnot experienced. He's OG, so if you have questions and want to just talk to him in person, he'd be a great person to talk to.
I love to do it. So don't
See, this is very inexpensive.
So yeah, that's all I got.
that's all I got.
I come out of.
Thanks for coming.
Woo!
I know, thank you.